Hello everyone! Welcome to another Art of War video. Hope everyone is just as excited as I am to be here. We are, of course, talking about, well, honestly, we're talking about everything. We've got a big Tyranid FAQ that dropped today, and I'm really excited because there's a lot of news coming in. So, based on the number of people in chat, I'm guessing that you all are excited too.
Yeah, this is I'm glad it drops on a Friday, right before all the weekend events.
Yeah, I
So
know.
it's amazing timing, but it's definitely good it's here. Having it 2 days earlier or 2 days later would have been interesting, but I
Yeah,
think it'd be
seriously.
great to see. I already know a few events who are adapting it and throwing it in there.
Mhm.
I don't know if any of the big ones are. I think was it Motor City in the States started today, so it's
Yeah, Motor City started
probably a
today,
little late.
so I'm pretty sure that they did not accept it, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I'd have to check on that, but I'm assuming since it came out like an hour before pairings went live, I'm pretty sure they didn't
Yeah,
take it.
it's probably a bit too much there, but
Yeah, I think so. 'Cause,
uh,
you barely have time to read it at that point. What's up, Nurgle Matt in the chat? Excellent. Good to see everyone. Yeah, no, honestly, I think that they did a really good job on this one. But Matt, you want to just dive right in?
yeah. So uh, I think this is what a lot of people have kind of been hoping to see, and some are probably thinking, is it doing enough? Or okay, I think it's a nice stepping stone. I think at the moment
Mhm.
it's probably the best way to go with it. So there's a few simple fixes. So you've got the Tyrannosite. They've changed it so it has to deploy 9 inches away, which that was kind of an obvious little thing that
Mhm.
you'd see. It did only have the requirement for the models getting out of it,
Yeah, yeah.
which was, yeah,
That was one of those things that I think everyone. I never saw someone play it that way. I think everyone knew that's definitely not what they meant. But still, it's nice
yeah,
to get the clarification on that. You don't want to find the one TO who does.
yeah. So you've got that fixed. You've got all the Forge World stuff is now Hive Tendril, which is great. Overrun has been fixed, so rather than consolidating at the end of the combat phase, which
Mhm.
you haven't done for about 3 editions,
Yep.
it's now just when you're in engagement. If you're not in engagement range,
Yeah.
after fighting, yeah.
Overrun reads as a stealth buff to me. So I figure we might as well attack these points one at a time. Overrun reads like a very small buff. This is probably how it was meant to be written the entire time, and they just
Yeah,
this is clearly just them fixing weird language that didn't actually work. But a lot of the interpretations that I saw were don't use it at the end of the phase, instead use it at in the consolidate step. I would rather do it at the end of the phase, just so that if I'm doing multi charges, I get more choices on who gets to overrun rather than it being the one that gets the kill.
yeah. So I've seen a lot of events kind of rule it as you use it instead of a consolidate, but then you
Mhm.
don't move till the end of the phase. So
Oh,
other things still have an option to pile into you and hit you.
and stop you from using it? That's even worse.
Yeah. So the current word of it now is use a stratagem at the end of the fight phase. So when Hive Tunnel Unit 3 armor, it's made a charge move this turn. This is where the FAQ kicks in. If there are no running models with engagement range of that unit, models in that unit can make a normal move. So it is possible for units to kind of stop you now,
Yeah.
because if they can pile into you or tag you with stuff, then you're in engagement range, so can't move away still.
Mhm.
So you do have to be a little bit more careful with that because the timing of it all.
Yeah, I like that there's a little bit more counterplay, but I still think that this is good for us overall because first of all, it makes it actually work, whereas
Yeah.
before the wording was just weird. So I'm pretty content with this one. Um,
Yeah, it's still a strat you're going to use at least once in every game, I think. It's still
yeah,
super powerful.
absolutely. Overrun is still amazing. It's good in a lot of situations. Um, I think that all the units that used to encircle every turn, which was Raveners and Flyrants, I think that Overrun keeps them relevant. But I
Yeah.
am glad that they don't have both. And of course, we'll talk about Encircle in a little bit as well. Um,
Yeah. So I
yeah.
think it's nice that you could have both. So you could have two units sitting safe. Now you can only give one away
Mhm.
because the next one on this list is the Encircle the Prey. And this is now use the stratagem, end of your movement phase.
Mhm. Easy.
Yeah.
For one CP, that's still like a totally fine strat, but it's now kind of like a guerrilla tactics level stratagem.
Yeah, I would have liked it to be probably something different because I think it definitely needed something
Yep.
and maybe some restrictions on it, maybe similar to Gene Steel Cult, say, where if there's nothing within 6 inches, something like that. So you can kind of double layer things and protect it a little bit. This changes it completely different style. And
Yes.
you're going to see it a lot less.
Hmm.
On the plus side, you're going to have more command points to use.
That's good. I was already running out. Yeah, this one feels like it's a little bit of a lazy fix. A fix was needed. This does completely remove like the feel of the stratagem. I know you and I both like the idea of changing it to more Return of the Shadows.
Yeah, I think something like that. So for anyone who's not
Hmm.
familiar with how it did work, you'd regularly have a Hive Tyrant or a Ravener unit or something along those lines, charging out, killing something, maybe not killing something, taking a little bit of a punch back,
Hmm.
but then going back off the board because it was the end of your turn, and you never got a chance to interact with it, you never got a chance to punch it back. Or you'd have Gargoyles, which would run onto two objectives,
Hmm.
score your Stranglehold,
Yep. I
and
did
then
that.
disappear because you score at the end of the turn, so they're going to score and then vanish. All those kind of plays are gone. So
Hmm.
Nids now, when you see where they are at the end of their turn, after they've overrun, that's where they are.
Yep.
So it's a lot easier to kind of punch them back.
Yeah.
And they will trade units now, whereas before they'd come punch you and run away, you never get to hit them back. You're going to get a chance to get stuck in now, which is a massive change.
Hmm. It really does fundamentally change how NIDs are going to play. We used to joke before NIDs are the best army in the game and the best trade army in the game, and they also don't have to trade.
Yeah,
Uh,
now they go.
they they're still a very good army, but they actually have to trade. Tyranid units are not doing something and leaving the board. They can do something and reposition a little bit. Overrun's awesome, but it's only one unit, and a normal move does somewhat limit where they can go.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think the biggest changes you'll see are like the gargoyles scoring the objectives.
mhm.
They're going to have to go. And I think the Hive Tyrant also becomes a lot less threatening to a lot of players now
Yeah.
because if like myself and John in our latest lists and a lot of others were kind of building to the last into Tyranids because it just works in that book. They've got really solid ways to play it. That Hive Tyrant was wanting to jump out, hit something, jump back with Overrun, or when it needed to extend, it could go, move, advance, charge, and just go encircle the prey. So it's done its damage, it's keeping itself safe, it's not going to die.
Mhm.
But now it can't do that.
Nope.
And I think that's
No,
going to
not at
tip,
all.
yeah, the threat range on that Hive Tyrant, which is in every list regardless of Hive Fleet, that is massively changed now. So if you can pin down where the Hive Tyrant Guard are,
Mhm.
all of a sudden, yeah, okay, you can control that board space a lot more because you know where they are. You know that model, unless he's going to give up those points for to the last, has to sit within 20 inches of one of those.
Yeah.
So you
And
can kind of bait him out a little bit, etc.
And even then, as good as the Flyrant is, because the Flyrant with Reaper of Obliterax hits, we think we all agreed a week ago that he hit way too hard.
Yeah,
But if he goes in and you spend 3 or 4 CP and he hits once and obliterates something and then dies, that's good, but that's in line with a lot of other units. There's a lot of units in
yeah,
this game that can go 20 inches, spend 4 CP and 200 points and kill something and then just get killed back. That's still a good tool to have, but it's no longer just it's no longer oppressive. So
yeah,
I'm happy that Encircle the Prey changed. I know that the Custodes players all thought that this strat would just go to once a game and not get changed. I prefer them doing a change to just making it once a game because that's again a little lazy. But in this case, I think that they've toned down Encircle the Prey a lot. I still like it. It's a good utility strat. You can use it to reposition gargoyles. Just in general, obviously, it won't be after Stranglehold, but if you need to get something in your opponent's backfield, but it's now a scoring tool more than anything.
yeah. I wouldn't have been too surprised if this does end up being a once per game stratagem now, because you're not really going to use it that often being end of the movement phase. You
Hmm.
may have one, maybe two plays to do little bits and pieces,
Yeah.
but yeah, it needed something for the state of the game. I loved it and it was amazing using it, but it didn't feel right. You were spending 2 CP a turn, potentially 1 CP, to just go bang, your whatever unit on this flank is gone. Cool, I'm gone. Yeah, I like it. It's it's not what I would have done. It's not what I would like to see, but I'm not going to complain as a Tyranid player
Yeah.
because yeah, it is what it is now. It's a utility piece, and everyone in the game is better against Tyranids. But I also think it will change secondaries into Tyranids a little bit
Mhm.
because you now get to kill these units, so you get more grind points potentially. You get
No,
more no
no prisoners, yeah.
prisoners.
And they're
There's
not going to
loads
get
of
the guaranteed to the last anymore.
yeah. So it does change their secondary game up quite a bit and stop them from being these guaranteed 90 hundreds to okay, you're going to score more against them, you're going to stop them a little bit. So
Yeah.
it's really in big change
Yeah,
rather than
I
just
honestly think this is
sub players.
the most impactful change that they've done so far. Moving on to the next one. This is a pretty easy one. They changed how spore nodes work. Here we go.
So I don't think they actually did here, and it actually doesn't make any difference, which I didn't realize till
No?
someone pointed it out to me today.
Let me reread the
So
third sentence now. So the FAQ is change the third sentence of the secondary objective spore nodes to if this action is successfully completed, place one objective marker anywhere within 1 inch of the unit that completed this action. I thought that they changed it so that it no longer had to be placed wholly in the opponent's deployment zone.
they did, but if you read the end of the sentence before,
Mm-hmm.
it's this: the action is completed at the end of your turn. Full stop. So the action is completed. If this action is successfully completed, place an objective marker, da 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 da. But you actually score 4 victory points every time you complete the action. So you complete it, and then if it's complete, you put a token down. The tokens, you don't score for the tokens at the end of the game. They don't do anything. They just can't be within 6 of another one. So all it does for the node is actually make it, you have to be 6 inches apart from each other. You score the objective before you even place it, which is strange.
So you score the objective regardless of whether or not you place a token.
Yeah,
You still can't start you still can't start the action if you're within 6 inches of a spore node objective marker though.
yeah. So it worked before. It's now just makes it a bit easier because,
Yeah,
like you said, it was if you're within 6 you can start, but you have to place it in the deployment zone. Now it's just if you're within 6 you start
that's
and
fair.
place the node.
Okay, so if you were reading it very literally before, then
Yeah,
yeah, it didn't change much, but I still think this makes it a little easier to explain, if nothing else.
yeah,
So, and I think the common interpretation was that you had to place the objective to actually score the points, which admittedly I did not actually say that, but I think that
yeah,
was what most people assumed. But
yeah. That was mine.
yeah, this just makes it a little easier to interpret, a little easier to do if you were following a logical interpretation. Um,
Yeah. Do
okay.
you like this secondary now? Is it something you're going to take more? Have
I
you
like it
used it at all?
more. I was literally, so I was stubbornly taking raise the banners in every single game.
Yeah.
16 games in a row, and there definitely were 1 or 2 games where that ended up being less points than I wanted. If I'm changing my list up a little bit anyway, I would relook at the spore nodes. I see this as being more useful if I'm taking more gargoyles and similar things.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah, I
I'm
think if you just have one, it's
and,
tough.
and I don't mind the idea of having more gargoyles in my list anyway, just because I have less units that can go out, take an objective, and leave, and I now have to go out, take an objective, and die. That makes me want fast, cheap, you know, units. And gargoyles can still go get you a stranglehold, hold 2 objectives, deny your opponent the 12, and then just die. And it's instead of spending a CP, it's like, I lost an 80-point unit. So if I have more gargoyles, then I might consider this more. And this one also gives me a reason to take Encircle the Prey, or to use it, which is to put a Gargoyle squad in reserves in the deep strike near my opponent's zone. I still don't think I like it, but it's better.
Yeah, I think I'm similar to you. Banners has been a really nice one. I've took that so many times. Rod, I think I've considered, but it's a bit of a weird one with Nids.
Yep.
If you've got slightly bigger warriors, etc., it's fine. but sometimes it can be better than banners because there's some missions and maps or even opponents that you don't really want to do it against. But yeah, it's nice. You need gargoyles or maybe even hormagaunts, etc. I think with warriors, I'm probably lean against it because you will get to the opponent's deployment zone, but you're reasonably slow. You've got to get through everything.
Yeah.
So I think it'll just be less outcome than you'd expect if you're trying it with a warrior heavy build.
Yeah, the best thing that I can think of doing here is on the turn where your Maleceptor, imperative is active, you can advance a Gargoyle squad to get it. Um, and then you probably lose the Gargoyle squad, but then if you have a second one deep strike in the corner of their deployment zone after you've cleared out some screens, maybe they can get it a second time. That's like 8 points right there. And then it's really just a question of if they don't run down and kill every Gargoyle squad you get, then they're immediately going to turn around and get you another 4 points. So if it's a
Yeah.
Gargoyle squad that's like not on a primary objective, there's a bunch of Carnifex, Raveners, Tyrants, whatever in their face, and they kind of let the Gargoyles slide because they're just on the side, maybe you get a lot of points out of it.
Or maybe you encircle the prey in a warrior unit and do it that way, late game.
I don't.
Maybe.
Warriors can't encircle the prey, right? It's fly and
No.
burrow only. I wish. Need more gargoyles for that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find a use for it, but it's not there.
Yeah, it's too comparable to teleport homers for me
Yeah.
for me to really care.
So next up is Synapse is now an aura.
Hey,
Cool.
yeah. I think rules as written it already was. This just makes it a lot easier to tell.
Yeah, there's always that debate of are things with a range brackets,
Mhm.
are they an aura, are they not? This is just, yep, it's an aura. Anything that shuts off auras, etc., does it. But I don't think it's huge because Synapse now is a 6-inch bubble.
Mhm.
It's the synaptic link that you really want.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fine. And just to add to that, we'll come back to the next point, but
Mhm.
zone ropes have the synapse keyword, which was
Again,
what we'd expected
yep. I think
most events
everyone
played as anyway.
just assumed that.
Yeah. But, and I know this is one you're not going to like, Hive Tyrant War Gear options. You cannot be equipped with more than one heavy venom cannon. You cannot be equipped with more than one Stranglethorn cannon, and we already know you cannot have one of each,
Mhm. Yeah.
which was kind of expected, but also wouldn't have been surprised if it didn't end up in the FAQ.
Yeah, I thought this one was about 50-50 on whether it would happen. I thought it would be an FAQ bait, and then when GW ruled you could do it at their Seattle event, I was like, oh, okay. But then of course I'm happier to see it get removed. Honestly, as much fun as it was to have the old Texas Hive Tyrant, just pulling a big iron on each hip, I think it's pretty reasonable to just have him have one gun.
So, do you now think the foot run is a thing? Would you take it with one gun? Would you take it like with a venom cannon or a
Yeah,
Stranglethorn cannon if you did? What's your kind of feeling? Because
it,
you've used
it's
the double gun more.
It's a tough one. So previously I had run double venom cannon and pathogenesis. I think pathogenesis is out no matter how I slice this.
Yeah,
Because pathogenesis was just rerolls on all your guns. It wasn't reroll one hit, one wound on all guns. It wasn't tied to a specific weapon. And that's what made it good on a double gun guy. So I think that's gone and I'm just okay with it. Um, I still like a Walkrent. They're a good caster, they're tough. I don't mind if he has a little bit more melee punch in exchange for worse shooting output. But now it is a question of what weapon to take. I I honestly don't even think the relic weapons are mandatory. Just having a gun is still a useful thing in the backfield, and Tyranids have enough good guns that I'm taking something strong either way. But probably, I'll admit I'm stealing your ideas in this one, so don't be mad. Probably the Balethorn cannon is where I'm gonna end up. I know that was one that you were excited about. Shard Gullet like merits consideration, but I just don't love 3 shots no rerolls, no
yeah,
matter how good the shots are. I just don't love that.
yeah. I found that a lot when I was testing the first few games. I tried a double gun and then I tried with just one, kind of in anticipation of potential FAQ.
Hmm.
And when you have 3 shots needing twos to hit, twos to wound, that's 6 dice. You should roll a one at some point there.
Yeah.
And so you're getting 2 things through. You're killing 2 Marines, 2 Terminators. It's okay, but it's not really reliant enough. Whereas the Baleforn cannon, you've got an average of 5 shots. strength 10, -3/3. So still really decent profile, and just the weight of shots, I think, for me tips it there. But, and I know we're probably going to cover this in, we're doing a NID clinic in the War Room next week for anyone who signed up to that. I am going to try Swarmlord now.
Yep. Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I think I prefer a Walkrent because I want the relics and warlord traits.
Yeah.
And I need someone to take them. But Swarmlord is now interesting enough to test because as a backfield to the last, he gives out a really good command phase without needing relics and warlord traits. So I can really justify it, honestly. Swarmlord he's worth looking at. So I'll probably test him in some games, maybe on some of the streams, depending both here and in the War Room. I don't know if he'll make it to a tournament for me yet, but I don't really have a tournament for another month anyway, so I think he's just a good thing to test.
So yeah, I think you're looking at like 40, 50 points, depending on which guns you go for, and the loss of the gun, which I think depends where your guns are coming elsewhere in your list, can be good or bad.
Yeah.
And you get some nice buffs, a little bit more combat. Okay, I'm going to give it a try. I may decide it's fantastic. I may just go, no, he doesn't do enough for his points, but that's completely other topic there. So what is next on this list of facts?
Next up is the Tyrannosite. I know you already mentioned it, but quite simply, he deep strikes 9 away, which we all knew was what they were supposed to do, but technically only his contents had to be 9 inches away before, for anyone wondering what the change is. And then they confirmed that it is a dedicated transport. I think everyone was already playing it as dedicated transport, but it was multi-listed as a transport in some places and a heavy support in others. This all looks like it's just expected cleanup. I think a Tyrannosite is still exactly as viable as it was before. This is just good to make sure we're not all crazy, and now you don't have to ask your TO in advance.
Yep. Then we get some bits we kind of knew. So your upgrades are monsters excluding characters in Titanic, which it did say in the front of the book, just the back of the book had a little bit of disclarity there.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah, the back of the book said named characters.
Yeah.
And so I was really wondering which one was right, but it looked like a mix-up where a different person typed the rule than the person who typed the summary. So, or they changed the rule at some point and didn't catch it everywhere. I think this is, again, probably what we were expecting.
Yeah.
So about half of these FAQs seemed like they were just, let's, clarify things that you already knew, and half of it was, let's actually change how this works.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that half of these needed to be done because they could have easily been picked up beforehand. But I'm glad they have been corrected and not just left to sit and be confusing. So
exactly, yeah,
that's fine.
And there was a pretty good turnaround time on this FAQ. Didn't the Tyranid book only came out like 3 weeks ago?
3 or 4 off the top of my head.
Is it 3 or 4? Yeah. It's weird because we've obviously had it for a while because this codex leaked on the internet quite famously. Yeah, and then they just have 2 FAQs in addition to the erratas, which clarify some things for us. First one is, again, a purely rules as written ruling that I think most people already knew. Basically, Enraged Reserves is an ability, or it's a points upgrade that lets a monster count as double wounds for the purpose of its tiers, for how many wounds it has remaining. And this doesn't change the Psychic Overload for the Maleceptor, because that was not, it wasn't a part of the profile. And that's exactly how it's being ruled, which is probably exactly how you were playing it.
Yeah, so I think that's fine. The next one up is Psychic Action. Yeah, if you do Psychic Action, it takes one of your powers. So this combined with the change to the Power of the Hive Mind stratagem, which is now character only. So rather than having a Maleceptor go cast, CP cast, and Psychic Action, and doing 12 mortal wounds, it can't do the Psychic Action and cast anymore. It can't do the stratagem and cast anymore. So they're now limited to 6 mortal wounds plus their damage.
Yep.
Which is a bit of a change to the Maleceptors as well.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, the Maleceptor is really the one who's affected by this the most for obvious reasons. Yeah. I think that's fine, honestly. I mean, the Maleceptor was obviously a little silly. I think everyone knew that, like, when you powered up a Maleceptor doing its thing, it was too good at that. Yeah, it literally just caps at 2 casts now, and you'll also, only once a game are you going to get to do the action and get some spells out of it, which means that a lot of the time you're choosing between offense and defense, and you're really not getting the benefit of both, even in Leviathan.
Yeah, because Leviathan's now core only as well for anyone who missed that bit.
Yep.
So yeah, that. How do you feel about Maleceptors now then? Because I know 170 points for what they
hmm
were doing wasn't right. It needed something changing.
Yeah,
Do you think this does enough, or would you like to see it be line of sight only, maybe? Because I know that was suggested.
I actually think this does enough for the Maleceptor. I hadn't considered that they might change Power of the Hive Mind to be character only. That was not on the list of things that I thought they might do. But I think it gets the job done. I mean, so my take on it before was that the Maleceptor was brutally way too good at what it did before. But it was doing a thing that Tyranids didn't really need, which is murdering everything within 12 inches. It was nice to have, but Tyranids have many ways of murdering everything within 12 inches. So I had kind of already dropped from 2 to 1 after some testing, because I found the second one wasn't that valuable. I still think that 1 sneaks into my list because mortal wound output is generally strong, and I like the option of the defensive buffs.
Yeah, I also found the synaptic he gives was fantastic.
Mhm.
A lot of times early game, I would just throw that out and go, cool, my entire army is just going to advance and throw banners all across the board. Come at me. Just
Yeah.
you have to now come into me and stop me, otherwise I'm just going to rack up these points.
hmm
I had a game where I matched banners by turn 4,
Oh,
and I
jeez.
just went, here's 5 objectives, turn 1, come at me. And he just couldn't do enough to shift me off them early enough. So I just racked up the points there. But
Yeah. I
I
think one
think
Maleceptor is still going to stay on my list. The real question for me is, will the Maleceptor change in points? I honestly don't even know if it needs to anymore, and if it does, a lot less than I would have said yesterday.
so. Yeah, it's interesting on points because we've seen last week or so that
hmm
the new GT packs come in,
Yeah.
and points are going to be online. So I was quite intrigued at why or how early we got to see that kind of preview cover, etc. Because I was expecting if it came out in February, 6 months later, because they did say it'd be about 6 month
hmm
sections or however they termed it,
Yeah, seasons, I
we'd be
think.
seeing it in August, which is 3 months away. If that's coming out sooner and this summer, I can see Ned's changing. There's definitely points need to go up on some things. I still think the Maleceptor, maybe 30-ish points.
Yeah.
Raveners, Pyrovores. Oh, a lot of it's okay, but some
Yeah.
bits just need changing.
I think a lot of things need a small increase. At this point, the Maleceptor was the one thing that I thought needed a big increase.
Yeah,
Now I think a ton of units need +5 here, +5 here, +10 here, +10 here. Like, yeah, I at this point though, I think like the Maleceptor going up like even just 20, keeping it sub 200, but it does a little less damage than before. It's still very tough. It could still afford to go up a couple points and still be a very good unit because that defensive profile that it packs is still a very good bargain for 170.
oh yeah. So I'm also intrigued that what they'll do with Warriors,
hmm
because I know a lot of people have been saying Warriors with Leviathan, they're worth more than 25 points. However, wouldn't have been surprised if in this FAQ they made the Leviathan buff monster synapse gets a 4 up transhuman, everyone else gets a 3 up.
Yeah.
To take it off the Warriors there, that would not have shocked me to see. Because we haven't, it does make me worry a little bit. Warriors may get a points bump, which will then make Leviathan fine, but hurt all the other builds quite a bit.
Yeah, that is something I'm afraid of is that warriors are kind of like the only good troop right now, with gargoyles being useful as a fast unit, but they don't actually provide any damage value whatsoever to the army. So I'd be a little disappointed if warriors got pointed to the fact that only Leviathan would even consider them. So
Yeah, I
we'll
think
see.
they might put the small bugs down at the same time though, and then all of a sudden
hmm
you've got Tervagons everywhere just going, "Bleh,
Yeah,
have some bugs." But
I wouldn't mind. I like the Turbo
yeah, I think as the FAQ overall, yeah, it hit most of the stuff that was needed. I don't think it hit everything. I still think NIDs are incredibly powerful. It's You're just going to change a little bit of what you see,
hmm
and I think people were kind of going away from the mass Leviathan Mortal build a little bit, so the 9 zone thropes, 2-3 Maleceptors, all that stuff.
Yeah, Think City, I think is what it was called.
Yeah, so I think people are going to lean away from that a little bit anyway,
Mhm.
and the Maleceptor's toning down, so they're not just going to go, bleh, here's the Mortals, and I think that'll be a lot more interactive to play.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more interactive to play against, which I think will open up a lot of room for the other trading armies to do good work. Like armies like Sisters, I think actually have a much better time into Tyranids now because they're not taking the bucket of mortals anymore. Uh, Power Armor is still relatively resilient to Tyranid shooting because they don't really ignore cover much and they have a lot of mid AP. And then if you just go hit someone and run away, if they can still charge you back with a good melee unit, they're in a good spot. And Sisters specifically, if you go charge anything into Tyranid army or anything in Sisters army with Tyranids and then you run away after you overrun, Repentia are going to come find you.
Yeah, so how do you think this then is going to leave Nids into armies like Tau or Eldar, kind of the other books we're seeing a lot of at the top? Do you think it's
Yeah,
going to change the
so
builds enough that it changes the matchup a lot?
I definitely think it changes the matchup a lot because of how Tyranids have to play. They're going to be losing resources more. And against those army, it was really a game of like bleed them dry before they get to unleash their full army on you, because if they ever do, you die.
Yeah.
And against Tau specifically, it's like, all right, I have to go do some damage and then run away so they don't get shot off the table. And I have to do that 2 or 3 times, and then they're worn down enough that I actually get to kill them. Because if I ever let a Tau army just shoot me, like the high damage with like hammerheads and storm surges
Yeah,
and bombers and crisis suits, I would just get
crisis
tabled
everywhere.
almost immediately.
Yeah,
So
so I kind of found that as well. The
mhm,
turn you go out and put everything out, if they still have enough guns, yeah, that goes
you
bye-bye.
can lose everything in your army in one
Yeah.
turn if Tau just get to tee off on you. So now it's a little more difficult to get around it. I would honestly say that Tyranids are probably still S tier. These were good nerfs. They were
Yeah.
needed nerfs. I think Tyranids are now probably the best army in the game, but I would actually say that there's a reasonable argument to say that Craft World Eldar are better. But my gut feeling is that Tyranids are still better than Craft World Eldar, but not by a large margin.
How do you think that matchup goes then? Because I was chatting with one of the guys
Mhm.
before and he was saying, oh yeah, I think I'm better now. And I kind of went, but if people start taking more of the little bugs and just kind of go, here's an overload, is it actually worse because they can get into you and make a lot more of a mess.
Yeah, if you're able to pull off an overload, um, it is a lot better. So I'm really not sure. I think I need to figure out where Tyranid lists go from here. I honestly was not planning to change my list much. I was more thinking that my what the battleship tyrant, as he's referred to, goes to a traditional walker and build where he is a gun and still lash with bone sword. I don't think that I'm going to drop one Maleceptor. I think I'm going to stick at one. I think I'm still like honestly, my first take on this is that I'm probably not changing my list.
Yeah, I was looking at different bits and pieces to try out,
Hmm.
and I was going to try a gun and tyrant and friends. I kind of looked and went, I've got a 1 day event tomorrow,
Yeah.
and they said, cool, you can change your lists because the 300 players all went, can we please use the FAQs? Because we'd much rather play with the updated rules rather than stuff that you're never going to use after this weekend.
Hmm.
And they're like, how much do you need to change the list? Oh, I don't know. I need to sit down and look at my book. And then I think I changed 2 units.
Yeah.
I actually considered going to 2 parasites as well.
Hmm.
Because if you're losing some of the synapse buffs in the midfield, if you maybe you're going down a Maleceptor from 2 to 1 or 2 to none, depending on what kind of way you want to go with your list, you're still going to need that quick synapse buffs to get around. So I'm going to try 2 of those, see how that goes.
Yeah. The so funny enough, the thing that I want to add the most after all this is Sky Slasher Swarms
Yeah,
because it's the cheapest fast moving unit that I can use disposably that I will fully accept as dying.
yeah.
So I'm
So
no longer spending a CP to have gargoyles get 2 objectives and then I scroll my points and then I leave. So now it's like, okay, if I need to go hold an objective, either to deny my opponent a 12 to get me a stranglehold, what am I actually going to send out? And I think it's actually kind of hard to get really cheap units in Tyranids. You can get very reasonably costed ones, but they're all in that like 80 plus point bracket,
Yeah.
and it's very hard to go under that. Like solo Pyrovores and Sky Slasher slash Ripper Swarms are like the only ones I can think of. And let's just be honest, you will never take Ripper Swarms in universe where Sky Slashers exist because they're the same points cost and one of them flies.
Yeah.
So
It's madness.
I really wish that they'd made Ripper Swarms cheaper to compensate for that. But you know, if that's what they want them at, that's what they want them at.
Do you also think, because I know we both ran Kraken the last event, we've
Mhm.
both been playing Leviathan a lot. There are other fantastic Hive fleets here, but I kind of read this and went, maybe Leviathan comes out on top a little bit more now.
Um,
Just
I'm still
if you're
pretty
going to
happy
stick
with
around.
I'm still pretty happy with Kraken. I like the speed buffs because Leviathan took the nerf to its spell. I think Leviathan at the moment is going to lean even more into warriors than it did before
Yeah.
because now you're only using that spell on core, but that spell is still absolutely fantastic. The best core unit to benefit is warriors. Okay, here we are. Um, so I think Leviathan warrior lists are still just as viable as before. You probably, if you were doing double Maleceptor, you probably go to one, and if you had the gun rent, you have to fix him to no longer be what he was. And then you're probably taking that Leviathan build is probably relying less on units that were using Encircle the Prey, but just more warriors and you're good. Kraken, I think I like having the third Ravener unit in still because I'm no longer getting to lead with them as much.
Yeah.
So I'm personally still in favor of Kraken, but one of the things that I've been thinking about, there's actually two parts to this thought experiment. The first is that I think I'm going to take +1 to charge less.
Yeah, I
Because I'm
can
no
see
longer
that.
going in reserves and charging out of it. And that was when I found I needed it, was when I was charging from reserves. I needed that +1 to charge. I might just keep the D3+3 advance on Kraken just to get the army up the field a little better.
Yeah, so I found myself using that and the ignore terrain as well. Because on
Yeah.
some kind of boards, when you've got a lot of difficult there, just being able to go, cool, I don't care about my moving, my charging, whatever. I'm just going to run all across the board. That was fantastic.
Hmm.
I am going to look more at Leviathan because now stuff has to stick around more. You're going to get punched back more. And it just makes everything that a little bit tougher. You can just kind of go, cool, I've got rid of some threats. Here you go. Go. Here's my army. You've got to turn, deal with it. Let's see what happens. And a couple of times in the past with Leviathan, I found all of a sudden they couldn't deal with that much in their face at one go, and then everything just got to hit them, and bam. That's an option I want to try again.
Yeah,
Kind of
sure.
running a Kraken style as Leviathan and just going, I'm just going to run my army at you. Can you deal with it?
Easy as that,
Maybe.
right? Yeah, I will also say there's a lot more play to that ignore charge modifiers because one of the Chaos Knight abilities, now that Chaos Knights will be in the meta soon, is one of their Dread and Doom table things, is an ability that makes you have your charge rolls.
Yeah.
And the idea of having my charge roll sounds absolutely terrible.
Yeah. That, I think
And
it's also handy because in the same tree as that, you have the no Overwatch, no set to defend.
yep,
So you play against Tau and just go, no.
yeah,
I'm just running straight at you. Don't care about all your guns. I'm going to punch you in the face. Then you can shoot me, but I'm not giving you a free shooting phase, hitting on fives or anything daft like that.
yeah. I think the last Hive Fleet thought that I've had is that I keep wanting to switch to a Lurk Hive Fleet just to try it out because I haven't played any tournament games with the Lurk Hive Fleet, and most of my practice was Kraken Leviathan as well. So if I were to switch to a Lurk Hive Fleet right now because Kraken's no longer encircling the prey as well, Leviathan is no longer buffing the Maleceptors as much, if that was what was going to motivate me to change, I think I would try out Behemoth right now. Again, because we're about to see Chaos Knights in the meta, +1 strengths army wide changes a lot of breakpoints into T7 and 8. And then
I've
the
also,
+1 to wound strat, or +1 to wound spell helps a ton into something like Knights.
yeah, so I've been looking at the Jorgmunder a little bit as well, just to kind of, you've got your 1 CP deep strike if you're running Vexes and stuff like that. That's quite fun.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then they have their second power is melee attacks get extra AP. So
So another way to
eh,
get extra AP to deal with Armor Contempt if you need it.
yeah, it's kind of a sub Kraken, but you get a bit more mobility on your other bits and pieces.
Yeah, some deep striking for not literally free, but for cheap is pretty good.
Yeah, I know in the past I was looking into Kronos more, I'm now kind of looking into that less because it was more of the psyker side of things I was looking at rather than the range. But it's like they get extra AP at half range, which is fine.
Mhm.
But I think because the psyker levels are dropping in NIDs after this, potentially, I may be wrong here, and people just go crazy anyway.
Yeah.
But I think that's less of a tool, especially in the singles kind of meta when you're worried about those mirror matches.
I agree. I think as the meta's starting to evolve post data sheet, there's less armies coming out that just are taking psychers. Plenty still are taking psychers, but it's no longer just like every game I'm playing against psychers. So I agree. Kronos is cool. I don't think it makes the cut for me, and I think Knights and Chaos Knights coming out because those are always going to be popular armies.
Yeah,
We don't really know how good they are yet. It's very early on to those rules being available. They've been public for less than a week, I believe. Um, but we don't know how good they are, but we know they're going to be popular because when Knights and Chaos Knights come out, and whenever they're strong, not broken, whenever they're strong, people just love to play with big dumb robots.
yeah, so
So
much.
you're gonna if you're gonna go to a tournament, the thought process of I probably just won't play against any Knights probably will not get you as far as it used to.
Yeah, well, just going, I'll touch on that again, but one of
Hmm.
the things I wanted with Kronos was, do you think with some of the NIDS powers going down, you're going to see more Thousand Suns Grey Knights potentially? Because then maybe Kronos has more of a swing.
Hmm.
But going back to the Knights, I think you've got to factor in Knights, NIDS, Marines, because there's Marines
Yeah.
everywhere all the time. Tau, Eldar. Yeah, they're probably like, if you can deal with those five,
Hmm.
please tell me your list, because if one list deals with all five, then yes, well done.
There are not many.
Yeah. I think Custodes will still be popular as well, I think, but I think they'll slowly die off as people switch to other bits and pieces now.
Hmm. Yeah, like agreed. Custodies and Harlequins will probably just start to drop off in numbers. I think they're still perfectly fine factions, but they're definitely their popularity is probably going to start to wane a little bit.
Yeah, although I do still love Harlequins. I think there's a lot of mission play. They're not just going to go and table people, but they've got strong mission play.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially into Nids as well. Oh, and Sisters as well. You're going to see a lot of Sisters.
See, I
But
will you?
I think
I
you
love
will.
sisters. I think they're very good. I just never see a lot of them.
I think you'll see a lot, but I think the spread will be quite mixed with them
Hmm.
because you can pick up Sisters and play them, and they're okay. And if you get very, very good with Sisters, then that's kind of it's like two different armies in a way. But so if anyone does want to join us in the war room in about 15 minutes roughly, we will be doing a Sisters clinic.
Good transition there. And of course, if you are watching this live on YouTube, you can always sign up and be a member on this YouTube channel or on our website, theartofar40k.com. Yeah, so I, at least for me, I think that wraps up all my Tyranid thoughts. Actually, one last question for you. Do you, was there anything in the FAQ that they missed that you wanted them to cover? Because I've got at least one.
I would have liked to see him change the Leviathan on to monsters only,
Hmm.
just kind of like a little balance thing, and Spore mines when Harpies drop them, because at the moment they just drop in the movement phase, so technically can still move.
Oh, right. Forgot about that. I hate that, yeah.
And maybe Spore mines choosing to blow up or not, but I'm okay with having the option because yeah, it's a remote switch.
Hmm. Yeah. Mine is that the Broodlord Synaptic Imperative gives a unit so infantry get light cover, and if they're already benefiting from light cover, they get heavy cover. And I
Yeah,
really want them to fix that because right now you cannot benefit from light cover in the combat phase, which is when you need heavy cover. So yeah, I wish they would just clarify how that works. And then I wish they would clarify if the mortal wounds caused by the Reaper of Obliterex allow a feel no pain type roll. I don't think they
yeah,
do, but it would be nice for them to actually put it in writing so that I get to stop asking.
yeah. That would be a nice little tick in a box just to not have your pre-event checklist to kind of
Yeah,
go
yeah. Everyone I've asked has
this.
said it doesn't count, but like you just want to be sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I'm good here.
Yeah.
Matt, thank you so much for joining me as always. Always good to be in here. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Again, if you enjoyed this and you want more high-level premium content, make sure you check out our website, theartofwar40k.com, where you can sign up for the War Room and be a part of our global community of like-minded players who are all looking to get better at the game. And of course, you can also join it in this very same YouTube channel, and doing so will give you access to the Art of War Discord. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Matt. Always good to have you. And
Speak to you all soon.
we'll catch you next time. Till then, have a good
See
one.
you guys.